Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at President Joe Biden's intentions to run for re-election in 2024. So this came out about 2 days ago that Joe Biden, apparently according to his press secretary Jen Psaki, is going to run for re-election in 2024. Now, just because, he says this now doesn't mean this is actually going to happen, but I'll take him at his word for it. He probably is thinking about running for re-election, which is pretty surprising given the fact that a lot of Democratic insiders, had previously said he was, behind the scenes going to be a one-term president, in that he was not going to seek re-election in 2024. But perhaps there's a number of reasons why Joe Biden has changed his mind. One reason that I think comes to mind is the fact that his vice president, Kamala Harris, has really fallen off in the polling. I think there was one poll where her approval rating was at just 28%. Biden's is hovering around 36%. So Kamala Harris is 10 points more underwater than even he is. I think that's one of the reasons why Democrats are pushing, I guess some of them, for Biden to run for a second term, as they see him as the strongest candidate, which really says a lot about the state of the Democratic Party right now. Other contenders like Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, they're either at or below Joe Biden's favorability ratings. And I guess Democrats see in Joe Biden somebody that won in 2020, unseated an incumbent president, and they think he might be able to pull off a re-election bid. But I would say that at the moment, these signs do not look good for Joe Biden. I think they're really banking on the fact that his approval numbers recover, since as of right now, according to FiveThirtyEight, which again, FiveThirtyEight tends to skew left, but they have Biden underwater by about 9 points in terms of approval and disapproval. And if we go to Civic's job approval, Biden is underwater a significant amount, 17 points underwater in terms of approval to disapproval. And, these numbers have just kept climbing really since August. We had the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Biden was underwater by 7 in terms of job approval. And now he's underwater by almost 20 points. So things are really not shaping up for Joe Biden. Now, I think he's counting on, obviously, some major policy wins, although I don't really think those are going to happen with the current makeup of Congress. But I think Joe Biden is banking on the fact that the economy improves, that inflation improves, and that things ultimately get better for the American people, because as inflation increases, as the economy becomes more uncertain, gas prices increase, people look to the president ultimately for that. And I don't have it up right now, but there was an article I was reading where as much as 75% of Americans blame Joe Biden somewhat, or a little bit, or a lot really, for the inflation that is currently going on right now. So people ultimately look to their leader in times of crisis. And we saw that in the 2020 election with President Trump. People looked up to him. It was basically a referendum on his leadership, and things like the coronavirus, the riots that happened that summer, really dragged him down significantly from where he was, say in January of 2020, or even March 2020, where he kind of was at the peak of his presidency in terms of approval rating. I think some of the polls had him almost at 50%. Some had him at 50%. Because of the briefings, because of he presented himself as a leader. That image kind of wore away, and then, of course, we had the 2020 election where Trump was defeated. We could see something similar, if not worse, for President Biden going into 2024, as his approval ratings show no sign of recovery. Now, the Biden administration is banking on that this is Biden's low point, that his low point is here, and that he's inevitably going to reach an inflection, soon, where it's going to start going the other way. But again, the economy really has to improve for that. And do I think that's going to happen in time for the midterms? Probably not. I would be really surprised. I mean, the midterms are less than a year away now. The economy already wasn't doing that great when he took office, and now things are getting a lot worse. And it seems that in some ways the Biden administration is digging itself a deeper hole with some of the mandates that they're putting forward on truckers. That's only going to further strain the supply chain and make the shortages that we're experiencing now even worse. So if we look at 2020's results, though, a lot of states came down to really less than 2 points, 2 or 3 points. We had Pennsylvania, a 1.2 margin for Joe Biden. Georgia, just a 0.2% margin for Biden. Michigan, this was the highest victory, but even this was only a 2.8% margin, not even 3 points. Wisconsin, 0.6, which interestingly enough was actually more narrow of a win than Trump's win back in 2016. Trump was able to win the state by 0.7%. Biden wins it by 0.6, and he wins it by roughly 20,000 votes. And of course, we have the state of Arizona, which was 0.3%. Now, these states were all flips, obviously, from the 2016 election, but something that really happened in 2020 is a lot of the voters that had voted third party or that segment of the electorate swung to Biden. All those independents in places like Minnesota, Trump got around 44% in the state of Minnesota. If we take a look at the 2016 election results, Trump got nearly 45%. He did roughly similarly in the 2016 election, 45.3. It was Biden that really made up the lost vote from Hillary Clinton in places like Minnesota. We saw a similar thing in New Hampshire as well. In fact, this is one of the states where Donald Trump one of the few states in the country where Donald Trump did worse in his raw percentage of the vote than he did in 2016. In 2016, Trump was able to get 46.5%. 2020, only 45.4%. So New Hampshire getting considerably bluer. And we saw similar things happen in places like Massachusetts, Maryland. But overall, Trump improved on his percentage of the vote in nearly every state. That includes California, Oregon, Washington, almost all the states in the country, minus I think 8 or so, where he actually did better. But 2024, I mean, if these states are the keys, and we can look again, I put the margins here on the map. If we flip the two closest states, which were Georgia, we flip to Trump very narrowly, and we flip Arizona to Trump. That puts Trump at 262. He needs just one more state to win hypothetically. Well, maybe two if he flips Nevada, of course. Then he still needs another one. But if we flip Wisconsin, the third closest state, Trump wins the presidency, 272. And granted that Biden is in a much weaker position now than he was in the 2020 election, I have no doubt that even in a Trump-Biden matchup, Trump would probably eke out a victory. Now, of course, you could debate whether Trump is the strongest Republican to run against Joe Biden in 2020, and that's an interesting conversation. But I think as of now, even somebody like Donald Trump would be able to win the 2020 election and probably do better than that. He'd probably be able to win Pennsylvania back. Michigan is a maybe. Nevada, perhaps. But it just goes to show you that the electoral map, there's a lot of room to grow. A lot of these states came down to such narrow margins, places like Georgia, Arizona. And again, as Biden's approval rating continues to falter, it is an opportunity for the Republicans to pick back these seats that they lost. And again, the Republican nominee might not even be Trump in 2024. It's most likely going to be him. I really think he wants to run, and that's his intention now. It's obviously debatable if he actually does decide to run again. We still have, I'm guessing maybe over a year, maybe a year and a half until his announcement. I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump pulled in Elizabeth Warren and announced his run possibly in December, right after the midterms next year. So we could be about a year away from an official announcement. But Trump is getting up there in years, and, his health could possibly be an issue, and he might not decide to run. So this really leaves an opening, in that case, for other Republicans to expand on the areas where Trump had weaknesses, particularly in the suburbs, places like the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, places like Maricopa County, obviously the collar counties of Philadelphia, places like that. Of course, you also have the Atlanta metro area. So suburbs all across the country really were Trump's weakness. If you could have if the Republicans run a Youngkin-type Republican, and I don't mean Glenn Youngkin himself, because while he, obviously shows that he's very electable, I think he's still a little bit new in the political realm to be running for president in 2024. He might be a 2028 contender, perhaps. Maybe he'll run for Senate. But I think as of right now, I don't really see Youngkin as a contender in 2024. I'll probably do a video soon on the 2024 contenders if Donald Trump does not run. Obviously, you have DeSantis up there. Nikki Haley, of course, wants to run. Kristi wants to run too. So we'll be breaking down all of those candidates. But I think as of right now, just about all those candidates would be able to pull off a win given our current electoral map. And we really could see a resurgence of the GOP that we haven't seen really since the 1980s, in terms of margins and stuff like that. And 2022 is shaping up to be, if trends continue, one of the biggest Republican victories since 1972 in terms of just raw vote share. And it's going to be pretty interesting to watch that unfold. And again, if things continue down this path, a red wave is essentially imminent, but it's not inevitable. And perhaps we'll do a video in the future talking about how Biden would be able to actually improve his numbers in time for 2022. I do think in a best case scenario for Biden, he does not keep the House. I think that's very unlikely. However, for him, I think his best bet is holding on to the Senate, possibly expanding the Senate perhaps. But I think for him, it's very, very unlikely, if not near impossible, to actually take back the House in 2022, even in a more favorable environment. But anyway, that's all for today's video. Hope you enjoyed this breakdown of Biden's announcement to run. And honestly, it's going to be interesting to see where his approval rating goes from here and how that's going to impact. Maybe if he decides to run, maybe if his approval goes completely down the gutter, he might decide not to run again after all. So it really remains to be seen. But anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. Please leave the thumbs up if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss any more videos I put out. As always, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.